What up, y'all? This is Z Nation, aka Savage Armor June Giraffe, coming at you with a budget deck profile for Gredora. Now, I know Gredora isn't like the best deck to actually do like budget builds and whatnot, and that's a little bit understandable. Mega Colony, the more budget builds, the more likely be machining, but I thought it would be interesting to tackle on like a budget build of Gredora because let's be real. The only reason why Gredora is actually as expensive as she is mainly because of the extra deck, not the main deck. The main deck is pretty cheap. I'll probably say the main deck you can probably get at most like at $40 onto it. So that's why I decided to try to do like $100, $110 at most when it comes to this. Now I want to be using TCG as pricing, of course, and whatnot. So that's a little bit understandable. And this build is a little bit weird at the same time. So you're going to have to kind of stick with me on this one. And I will explain along the way of why I decided to choose certain tech choices. So without further ado, here's my Gredora deck for about like 110 or whatever. So we're going to basically start out with the main chick, the head honcho of the group for Gredora. We're also going to play two Alakites and one OG Darkface. Let me get this out the glare. So Gredora, basically her skill is pretty simple. Whenever she's placed on the Vanguard circle or you stride during on that turn, you have to do either or. You can't do like, oh yeah, I'm gonna ride Gredora, use her skill, and then stride, and then you get to use Gredora still again. But anyway, basically what she does is you choose a column and your opponent can't call anything on that column on their turn. Now, the issue with this effect is it has to be on their turn, but during your turn, if they have ways to superior call, more likely they can do it. So, them Great Nature matchups are going to be a bitch, for one. Two, I will say even at the best, even at like its best, the worst matchup for Gredora is going to be Messiah because Messiah could just call over whatever, regardless because of what is it, Miga and Ideal? I think that's one of the Messiahs, the one that Superior calls face down. And basically it's because when they superior call, they're superior calling it, locked. So it gets over it, which is actually pretty stupid in my honest opinion, but that's how it works. Her second ability is at the beginning of your ride phase, you get the Soul Blast one, and your opponent chooses a card from his or her damage zone, puts it face down. You choose a card from your damage zone, turn it face up. Even if they have all of their cards in the damage zone face down, you basically going to be just flipping on countercharging one. Now, in my honest opinion, I will say that Gredora is probably, in my honest opinion, the best way to get to a Zero Dragon. And that's because even if you have like, as long as you have like one damage open, you can basically get that second damage, you can basically unflip that second damage, and at the same time you can get the Zero Dragon. Whereas everybody else, they have to keep two damage open at all times. So I feel like because of that, that's the main reason why, Gredora is the best for that. Let's see, we're running two Alakites. Alakites is a very interesting effect. I'm gonna warn you now, this is a card that you don't want to ride on the Vanguard circle. That's like the only bad thing about him. When he's placed on Vanguard or Rear Guard, you choose a column by counterblasting one and soul blasting one, and you basically stun that whole column and you force rest. So not only force rest, but it stuns a column. And Dark Device activates, so when it attacks, it gains a 10k plus, and your opponent can't intercept at all. So late game, this card is hella stupid. Very late game. Mid game, he's also stupid. But here's the reason why I'm running two. Dominate. Worst thing about Dominate is them dominating this card because they're going to get the 10K plus. And you do not want them to get the 10K plus. Trust me. Oh boy. 21K. Oh my God. And don't even get me started on Rene turns. It's bad enough that he's a 21K B-Sick. 21K plus 15? 36 plus a critical? Nah, you don't want to deal with that. So that's why we're running him at 2. Originally, I was running him at a full 4, and I was running like him at 1. So I was running like 9 grade 3s, but ever since like Dominate became a lot more powerful, yeah, this is the last card I want them to ever dominate. With that being said, outside of that, this card is hella good. Last but not least, we're running OG Darkface. Now, just in case you don't have Gredora, this is the next best thing. So in a GB2 turn, whenever your opponent calls a card on their rearguard circle, you get the Soul Blast 2 and Force Rest it. This gets over resist. This gets over whatever effect. I'll probably say like the worst matchup when it comes to this card on the rearguard circle, on the Vanguard circle, is Genesis because of Revelation. Basically, because for one, if they call like something like a Tonoha for a prime example, you have to wait for them to do their Revelation turn first. But outside of that, the only other reason is because they can restand on for free. So even if you were to stun, even if you were to use the effect to force rest them, they're just going to restand anyway. His on stride skill is you counterblast 1, you choose up to 2 of your opponent's rear guards and force rest and stun. And if they're still at the rest position at the end of their turn, you get to draw a card. Remember that it is a choice and you don't have to do it. So that's why I'm running 1 of him. Otherwise, if I'm on Gredora, stride bait. Although there is like a couple of strategies you could do where basically, if you're to play like Octorandus and keep using Octorandus, but of course you're not going to be using Octorandus in this build, but if you're to keep on Octorandus turns, use this against any deck that constantly superior calls, and they ain't going to do crap. Now on to the grade 2s, because I spent way too long on grade 3s. We're running 4 Dangerous Horns, 4, I know I'm going to be butchering his name, Articides, and the weird tech I'm running in here is 4 Sweet Cocktail. So starting with Dangerous Horn, he's a 10K, and he's very good. He's one of the ones that if you don't have Darkface on the Vanguard circle, or if you don't show Darkface from your hand, then he'll go to 5K for the turn. But what I like about this card is he gains a plus 6K when he attacks if your opponent only has 1 standing rear guard or less. So he's a 16K B-Stick on stride turns, which is actually pretty good in my honest opinion. Plus he's a 10K, so there's nothing you can go wrong with that. Next we have Artist Life, which Dark Device, she gains a plus 2, so she's an 11K attacker on your turns as long as Dark Device is active. Another reason why she's pretty good in the deck. Last but not least, we're using Sweet Cocktail. Now, the reason why I'm using Sweet Cocktail and not Punish Stag is because, yeah, Punish Stag, you can get the effect for free and he gains a plus 2. But once your turn is over, that's it. He's just a 9K B-Stick. And honestly, that's probably like the bad thing about it. And yes, Sweet Cocktail, you have to boost and use a counterblast in order to use her effects. But unlike Punish Stag, she can not only use her effect more than once, but she also has the ability to force rest. You also got to remember that Punish Stag is a dark device. So if you call Punish Stag on a column where your opponent has at least 1 standing rear guard, that whole is just going to become a 9K vanilla B-Stick regardless anyway. So With Sweet Cocktail, it's not Dark Device, so when you attack, you basically force rest a card, and now you have Dark Device activated. So whatever grade 1 that is boosting with, you basically have the ability right then and there. So in my honest opinion, I feel like that this is basically one of the best cards to play outside of like Artist Scythe and Dangerous Horn. So that's understandable. That's my grade 2 lineup. On to the grade 1 lineup. It's pretty simple. For the PGs, we're running Black Weevil. I feel like this is the best PG when it comes to this deck, when it comes to Dark Face in general. 4 Stride Fodder, of course. There's no explanation right there. We're running 3 Vulcan, and we're running 3 Twilight Matter. So Black Weevil, quickly to use his effect. The bad thing about this card is he can only defend Dark Face cards. The good thing is, as long as the Dark Face is in the Vanguard or the Rearguard circle, it can defend it and instantly block it. But mainly, you want to use his effect for, let me see, it binds himself. It binds 2 cards from himself from the bind circle. I mean, it binds itself from the drop zone, and you get to draw a card and choose to either countercharge or soul charge. So it's a pretty good card in general. I'm not even going to talk about Stride Fighter. You already know what Stride Fighter does. This card is a beast. Basically, it has Dark Device, and when the beginning of your main phase, you get to put into your soul and countercharge 1. So this not only charges up for the soul, it also gives an ability to countercharge and gives you a free 1. Only bad thing, it has to be during main phase, at the beginning of your main phase. Outside of that, it's not too bad. But I love its continuous effect, which basically, as long as it has Dark Face, as long as you have a Dark Face Vanguard, it has resist, and whatever column that this card is on, whatever column that your opponent has cards on, what this card is on, they cannot intercept in that column. So, oh boy, Gold Paladins is going to have a hard time against this card. Anybody who needs to intercept is going to have a hard time with this card. And I just love it because it denies the ability for people to intercept. And it has resist. So, man, outside of like Kagero, it gets over a lot of stuff. Last but not least, we have Twilight Matter. Twilight Matter, basically, when you have a grade 4 with Dark Face in its card name, whenever you boost a unit, regardless if it's Vanguard or Rearguard, this unit gains plus 3k, which makes it a 10k B stick. But at the end of the battle, you have to put the card into the soul and you draw a card. So with draw potential, it becomes a 10k B stick. And overall, it's a very good card. So, in my honest opinion, I feel like that's one of the best grade 1s that they ever came up with the thing. Now, you're kind of wondering why we're not running Brilliant Blister. Is because, in my honest opinion, I feel like Brilliant Blister is a waste of time. Like, it's a good card. If you want to tech it in, I suggest taking out, like, a Twilight Matter and a Vulcan. Well, actually, I suggest just taking out Twilight Matter as a whole. Probably taking out Twilight Matter as a whole and play a card called Bad Luck Star. Bad Luck Star pretty much Soul Blast 1. If your opponent has 3 or more rested units, that's both Vanguard and Rearguard, it allows you to draw a card. So I would replace all 3 Twilight Matters with 1 of that and 2 Brilliant Blisters. But honestly, I feel like the worst thing about Brilliant Blister is that you're not always going to go against a deck that restands the Vanguard. And when that happens, it just becomes a 6k B-stick. Last but not least, for the starting Vanguard and the trigger lineup, our starting Vanguard is Outstanding Mutant Provalence. We're running 8 crits. Four of the crits being the Dark Face Bomb Scissors one, and 4 of the crits being Tree Hopper. Tree Hopper has the ability to return itself back to the deck to stun one of your opponent's rear guards. So it not only returns to the deck, it also stuns a rear guard, which is pretty good. We're running 4 draws, and of course the heal triggers that allows you to countercharge, soul charge whenever you G-guard. This card is hella good. So you counterblast one, put it into the soul. It's not GB restricted either. You force rest all your opponent's rear guards, and you draw a card. And this is beginning a ride phase. So let's say you don't have that grade 2 in hand. You just counterblast one and put it into the soul, and then draw a card, and hopefully you have that grade 2 in hand. So that's actually pretty good, especially if you're like low-key grade stuck and you don't want to like admit it. So outside of that, it's still a pretty good card regardless. So that's the main deck in general. Let me quickly go over the extra deck. We're going to start with the G-guards. 1 Relish Lady, 1 Grimes Forth, and 3 Morphesians. Honestly, Morphesian is probably, in my honest opinion, the best G-guard we ever got. When your opponent has 2 or less standing rear guards, you can basically get a 10k shield, so your Vanguard becomes basically 36. So that's actually pretty interesting. Grimes Forth is very good, but the bad thing is it only activates when your opponent's Vanguard attacks, which in that case, you counterblast one, you force rest all your opponent's back row, and it gains a 5k shield for each 2 rested units on their field. So average, it'll be like a 36k guard, but if they have all of their units rested, then it'll be 41. Last but not least, we have Relish Lady, which is the unflipper G-guard. Worst thing about Relish Lady is that she also can only activate if your opponent's Vanguard attacks. It gains no shield. However, it gives your opponent the option to force rest 2 units. And if they don't, you draw a card, countercharge, soul charge. So basically, in my honest opinion, you only use the card if you know for sure that they can't force rest a card. And it has to be 2 units. It can't be no more than 2 units. So now on to one of the more controversial cards in the game, since we can't use Optarantis or Overwhelm. Basically, we're going to be using 4 Merciless Mutant Darkface. Very interesting card. So you counterblast one, choose a card, any card from your G zone, and turn it face up. For each face up card with this name, you choose one of your opponent's rear guards, and they can't be chosen by your opponent at all. This includes triggers. This includes effects. In that card cannot intercept. And for each card you choose, your Vanguard gains 15k. Now, the reason why this is the more controversial card in the deck is because the market price for this card on TCG Player is about $20. But as of right now, as of I'm recording, this card is basically $10. So you can get a full playset for about $40, but if you find people trying to rip you off with the market price, basically it's going to be about $80. So let's be real, right now this is a $10 card, not a $20 card. For the 2 cheap cards that you're going to be running, 2 Poison Spears and 2 Anguish Swords. Anguish Sword basically allows you to choose the same number of your units as the same number of your opponent's rested units, and they gain 4k. If 3 or more units were chosen, you gain you draw a card and you countercharge one. Poison Spear force rests all your opponent's units on ride, and if your opponent has 3 or more rested units, you get to draw a card and your Vanguard gains +5. We're going to be also using Heat Elemental Melodon, I don't know, Mephido, or I think that's how you say it. So basically, you choose a card face down and you turn it face up, and you choose one of your rear guards. And basically, if this attack hits the Vanguard, your rear guard gains 5k for every face-up card in your G zone. So that's actually a pretty interesting card late game, or you can use it early game. Last but not least, we're running two of the GB8. I'm proxying one because I no longer have two. Basically, what this card does is your opponent loses all auto abilities in every single card in their field. They cannot intercept, and all of your units gain 5k for each rested unit on your opponent's field. That's including Vanguard. Basically, what you want them to do is have like a full field, in my honest opinion, and then you basically gain like 30k, 30 plus k or whatever. The only reason why we're running this is because basically Overwhelm and Octorandus, they're way too high. Overwhelm's like about $50 a piece. This is like about $40 a piece. So basically it would definitely go over the $100, limit that we're using with the deck. This deck, in my honest opinion, will probably cost you like exactly $100 or like 110 at most. Let's see. He's the money card, of course. She's the money card. This is kind of sort of something. He went down recently. He went up to like $8 at one point. A full play set of Gredora is about $5 a piece, so that's 20 altogether. Even the Allocates is about like $3 at most. This kind of went down to like $1. It used to be like $5, $6. This is like at least $2 to $3 at most. And outside of that, everything else is pretty cheap. They're like under $1. So yeah, altogether, this deck will probably cost you $100, and if not, 110 at most, if you're trying to pick this up for like a cheap deck. And like I said, yeah, a cheaper alternative would be machining, and you can basically get like a full machining deck for the exact same price with the overwhelms. But let's be real, everybody's just going to wait for Overwhelm to actually go down in price anyway, so what's the point? Anyway, this is my deck profile. Tell me what you think in the comment section. This is Mrs. Zoo Nation, aka Savage Armor June Giraffe, signing out.